My name is Sarah, and I'm 46. For years, I thought I had a normal life. But last year, everything shattered when my husband died in a horrific accident. You'd think that was the worst part, right? Wrong. His death ripped the lid off a life of lies. He wasn't just my husband, he was a serial cheater. He died alongside his mistress, leaving behind 2 infant boys, orphans of an affair I never knew existed. My daughters, 17 and 15, were the ones who found out. Imagine that trauma. They lost their father and discovered his betrayal on the same day. While we were grieving and processing this, my ex-in-laws, who were in their late 70s and 80s, turned into monsters. They didn't care about my daughter's pain. All they wanted was to force me to take in the affair babies and let them move into my house. They wanted to turn my home into a monument for their son's sins. I said no, a firm, hard no. That's when the war started. My ex-in-law is a pillar of her local church, or so she claims. She started a smear campaign that would make a politician blush. She went to her church's Facebook group and told everyone I was an unchristian monster. She claimed I was leaving them penniless and homeless, which was a total lie. They inherited his life insurance and bank accounts. But the biggest lie? She told the church that the mistress was actually our surrogate because I was barren, and I abandoned the babies because they were boys. It was sickening. She used her faith as a shield to hide her son's adultery. The breaking point happened on my youngest daughter's 15th birthday. We went to the local weekend market. I gave her some cash and let her go off on her own to buy some sweets. An hour later, I got a call. It was my daughter. She wasn't happy. She was sobbing. I ran to find her and my blood turned to ice. 6 elderly women from my ex-in-law's church had cornered my 15-year-old girl in public. They were berating her in public, calling her unchristian and cruel for not wanting to be a big sister to the affair babies. They were literally bullying a child on her birthday. When I stepped in, they turned on me. They told me I was a failure as a wife and that I should obey my in-laws. We were eventually kicked out of the market because the screaming got too loud. These vultures followed us all the way to our car. That night, looking at my daughter's tear-stained faces, I realized that being the bigger person was getting us nowhere. I contacted a friend from that church and found out the full extent of the lies. My ex-mother-in-law hadn't just lied about the babies. She was calling my daughters bastards in private emails and blaming them for their father's death. She told them it was their fault he died because they told me about the affair. That was it. No more mercy. I had a mountain of evidence from the divorce I had started before he died, and I was going to use every bit of it. I spent the next day at a high-end print shop. I didn't just print papers. I created masterpieces. I made personalized binders that looked exactly like the hymn books the church uses. But instead of songs, they contained the gospel of truth. The first page, a high-resolution photo of my ex-husband making out with his mistress in my living room. I included text logs of my ex-mother-in-law encouraging the affair. I included the emails where she called her own granddaughters bastards. I made dozens of these binders. On Sunday morning, before the service started, I walked into that church and placed them right on the back desk where everyone picks up their prayer books. The explosion was glorious. This church is incredibly strict about adultery. When the congregation saw the photos, the surrogate lie evaporated instantly. The gossip mill went into overdrive. By the time the service ended, my ex-in-laws went from suffering martyrs to pariahs. The Facebook group they used to shame me turned into a battlefield where they were being called out for their hypocrisy. The pastor had to intervene just to keep the comments PG-13. My ex-in-laws were shamed into leaving the church entirely. My ex-mother-in-law made one final desperate post about how no one cares for the elderly anymore, but no one bought it. They lost their community, their reputation, and their power over us. I got apology letters from the people who harassed us at the market. They realized they had been weapons for a liar. Now, my daughters and I are finally at peace. They learned a valuable lesson. If you try to burn someone's house down with lies, make sure you aren't standing in a house made of glass.